Well, hello, everybody. Hey, Doki, what's up? Hey, Jungle, you made it. Here we are.
What's up?
Good morning, good afternoon. It's all
Good
about.
afternoon. Yeah.
Well, this is going to be an interesting talk. So, a rise of man on Earth. Um, did you did you have anything as far as PowerPoint or something that you wanted to share or anything like that?
Yeah, I just got my share screen going there, and there we go. Yeah, so you want me to go ahead and start?
Yeah, you go ahead and start, and then I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint I can squeeze in a little bit later. But welcome to the stream. Uh, have some coffee, Doki.
Yeah, coffee.
All right, go right ahead.
All right, here's the world map of DNA. If I can zoom in on it properly, I guess. Anyway, yeah, world
It's,
map of wide DNA haplogroups. Now, this is like the general areas of all the paternal haplogroups, which are from the Y chromosome, non-recombinant DNA, and you got all the different haplogroups here. At the bottom, it's interesting because you have actually they have them all separated. You got the A, B, C, D, E, F, and of course the F belongs over here, F, G, H, I, J, and the K here belongs over here, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T. So the three groups are the Hamitic group, which is A, B, C, D, and E, the Semitic group, which is F, G, H, I, and J, and the Eurasian Japhethite group, which is K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T. So that's a good hint as to what the divisions are. Now the main thing, the first thing we need to see is that we have what's known as the Cohen modal haplotype. The Cohen modal haplotype, see, even says Middle Eastern Semitic. FG H is missing, but IJK. Well, this is from the other group, but J1 here, this J1 is Middle Eastern Semitic. But the Cohen modal haplotype identifies the descendants of Aaron, with almost half of the people who claim to be priests of Israel, descendants of Aaron, almost half of the people that have a tradition of telling their sons that they belong to the Aaronic or the priesthood, descendants of Aaron, they came up positive with one S&P marker. And it's the only group that came up with was J1 P58. It's called a haplotype, which is a specific designation of a haplogroup. See, this is the J1 is the haplogroup. J1P58 is a specific haplotype. Oh, and they got the P58 right here. But anyways, this identifies the descendants of Aaron and Levi and Jacob and Abraham and Arphaxad or Arpachshad, as I like to say. So this IJ is definitely the descendants of Arpachshad. Then we have the confirmation. Here's Middle Eastern Semitic. J2 is Middle Eastern, but what happens is that The people, when they were exiled, the people of Israel, the children of Israel, when they were exiled to the north. So they all went up here to the north, and they went into these areas here between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, which is known as the Caucasus Mountains, the Caucasus areas. And they went other places too. Of course, like Italy, J2. And from Italy, basically all the way to, well, what is it? Almost Pakistan, I guess. This area of Persia is like the largest haplogroup in those population is J2. And this J2 M172 is the most common one, which I believe would be the house of David and Solomon. This J2 M172. And this J2, of course, goes up the Rhine River as the Ashkenaz, and it goes down the Silk Road as the traders of the Silk Road, and so that even the Uyghurs, their majority population or haplotype, their majority haplotype is J2, which is not even J1, not I, not anything else. J2 is specifically Judaic. As you know, as far as I can tell, for the most part, especially this J2 M172, which is probably the direct descendants of King David and Solomon.
Right. Let's just do a refresher on this, because where I'm going to go after, because this is all after the flood. So we've got basically the Mesopotamian area that was populated first, and then everything spread out after that. So obviously there were different civilizations that family members started as they grew. And so why is the J mostly in that Middle East? They just picked the J because of a name, or was it because you have the D over to the right on this, and then you have E over to the left on this? What makes J in the middle? Why did they pick J as that area?
The reason why these are like the majority haplo group in the areas. So, for example, in Arabia, the majority haplogroup in the area is J1, and particularly the P58, which is ironically the descendants of Aaron, and the J2 M172 is probably ironically the descendants of David, which there's more than these haplotype. This M172 and this P58. There's other groups beside that in these areas, but apparently these are the predominant haplotypes in the area. So that's why they're colored like this. It's just a general thing. For example, Q is right here. Q, I believe, is the Medes. Of course, the Medes were right here. The Medes and the Persians over here. The Medes were over here.
Right. I was just curious as to how they picked the letters. It seems because you would think it would be a scientific thing that they would go back after they picked these numbers and letters, that it would kind of spread out from an ABCD type of a thing. But I guess it's because you have it's interesting. Yeah.
Right. It's interesting, yes, because they started with the A, B, C, D in Africa, assuming that they are the oldest, most original genome.
Now I get it. Okay. Out of Africa was the guy.
And then for some reason over here in America, these are the paternal haplogroups, but the maternal haplogroups, the mitochondrial haplogroups, they labeled as A, B, C, D, C, and D, even though A is Semitic, B is Semitic, and C and D are Asiatic or Eurasian.
Yeah, because they think the Indians crossed over during the Ice Age, came over into America. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And
I
that's
don't
been
know
disproven. That's actually been disproven, by the way.
for whatever reason. Well, whenever they crossed is irrelevant. The matter of fact, they did cross early on, especially the C of the Nadines or Nadinis or however you pronounce it, because they came all the way over here into South America. The C, which is, I believe, of the descendants of Nimrod, because it can only be Nimrod. It can't be anybody else. There's nobody.
Right.
There's no other house of Nimrod in the area.
Can I interject something right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so we know that they were sailing within the first century after Noah's Ark, because Japheth split up and he would have gone north by ship versus walking.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, they probably had boats and ships and everything they crossed, even if there wasn't. I mean, there might have been a land bridge here.
Oh, I believe there was, but think about that. I mean, you're talking about all these, this caveman movie, that we see from Disney all the time, that, the Ice Age, and you got this guy walking around, he's got some bear skins hanging on him and trying to go and get a woolly mammoth to eat and all this other fun stuff. All those little cartoon movies that they throw at us. That's what they want to focus on, instead of they already had the technology. If you have the technology to build the Tower of Babel, let's just say it was only 400 feet high, only four, let's just say that. That technology, for it to be stable enough to be built, sturdy enough to last, and have to be torn down, not just fall down, but have to be torn down. So they already knew engineering, and all it takes is just, I'm sure there's plenty of wood around for them to build a boat, right?
Right, and one of my points being that they immediately started building megaliths all the way down in South America and in Central America and everywhere.
Exactly. The Aztecs as well, and the Mayans and the other the Incans and all of them that we learn about in early history in the 4th grade, 5th grade, that they say they came across the Bering Strait because it was ice at the time, and they came all the way down through Mexico. What is that? 7,000 miles?
Yeah, right.
7,000 miles.
Right, yeah. But the reasoning being is that these haplogroups tied together, they're closely related. Here, the only one that's not closely related would be the B Semitic lineage of the mitochondrial maternal lineage that crossed through the Pacific, apparently, because it's more concentrated in South America in these areas, and there's no trace of a B up here anywhere. But as far as these haplogroups for the paternal lineage, they're linked together. These Q are linked together. And the C3 is C3, as opposed to down here in the Pacific is C2. So we know wasn't the C2 that crossed over the Pacific. It was the C3 that crossed up over here. But the anomaly is right here in the Great Lakes region. What do we have here? What's this one here? You know what this is? This
what,
R1.
French?
This R1.
I have no idea.
This R1b is Southern European or Mediterranean. Now, how did this R1b get in?
Oh, so it could be the Gauls. Yeah, it could be the Gauls then, the Mediterranean area.
And incidentally, there's copper mines right here.
Isn't that interesting?
You know about the ancient copper mines? Yeah,
I do. Yeah, well, during the Exodus, when they were going through this, what's called the Sinai Peninsula now, Egypt wasn't in control of that area, but they had turquoise mines, copper mines, and or not tin mines, hit the other metal. But let's just say copper and turquoise. They had mines there, and that's why the Egyptians had to take a different route. And
Yeah.
God told them to turn down to the south. But yeah,
Right.
it's amazing how the metallurgy at that area, they call it the Bronze Age, and if you look
Right.
at Daniel 2, that's kind of what they base it off of, the Bronze
Right.
Age, and like they didn't have actual fighting iron until later, when we knew that Tubal Cain in Genesis 4 and 5, Tubal Cain was the artificer of brass and iron, and I'll get into it a little bit later. Carry on.
Yeah. This Mediterranean R1b didn't cross over from this side. It didn't cross over through here. It had to have come this way around here. It had to have come this way to America from, well, from over here, from the Mediterranean. See, here's R1b right here. This R1b went up over this way into Europe, and that's indigenous people or Native American Indians always somehow, for some reason, come up with Mediterranean DNA, and they're scratching their heads and trying to figure out how they get Mediterranean DNA. But it's very, very common. Plus, there's other haplogroups from the Mediterranean in Native American populations as well, which I could get into later, maybe. I've done it before. But there's interesting things like here, like this Q here of the Medes. It's also up here. See this Q up here? And I was watching a video from Madman one time, and he showed how the Medes were up in this area right here. Isn't that interesting? The Medes were in Europe in this area, and it's like 4% of the population is still there to this day. There's so many interesting things, and same thing with Italy. It might have been Madman the same that said that Tubal settled in Italy, and I had already assigned a haplogroup for Tubal, so I said, well, wait a minute, I hope I got it right, because if Tubal settled in Italy, there should be a K haplogroup right here. So I went and checked over here, wherever it is, right here, and look at this. 8% of central Italy, 8% is still K2 from the original population of Tubal in Italy. And of course, the rest are foreigners, they're outsiders. This, of course, being Gomer. This, of course, being probably, E3 is Mitzrayim. This one, Assyria. This one, Dan. This one, Judaic or Arabic and Judaic. And 8% is the descendants of Tubal. R1b being Ripfaf, the son of Gomer. So that is just a whole bunch of things that just fit almost perfectly. Now, I guess you probably wanted to get into this right here, right? Or where is it? Where'd it go? This right here?
Yeah, that's where we're gonna. Then I'll start a little bit of talk on that.
Yeah. So we have, now this is the order is usually mixed up, and it's mixed up right here as well. Japheth is the oldest son, Ham is the youngest son, and Shem is the middle son. So we have to keep that in mind. So is there anything you want to talk about the sons of Japheth or Ham or Shem?
Well, let's go with the evil first. So we'll go with Ham, because that's kind of where it does lead off in the Table of Nations, where first of all you have Ham, and then Cush, then Nimrod. So that middle section with Ham, and then over to the left with Nimrod, all the way down. Let's start kind of that area, and then we'll go into Shem and then Japheth.
Yeah, these descendants of Cush,
Right.
Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The order that I have is, well, I don't know who's the old. Yeah, Cush is the oldest. Cush would be the oldest, and then there's Put is E1, Canaan is E2, Mitzrayim is E3. Cush is A, B, and C. C being Nimrod.
Okay. Yeah, they
And
have
then
Put. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and there's also a D, of course, there's C and D, but D is more associated with E2 rather than Nimrod C. So the D and the E, they call it DE. So the D is more associated with the sons of Canaan, which would be this one right down here, the Sinite tribe, which is the namesake of Sinai and the land of Sinim. With a DY haplogroup, which I could show over this way too, is that the D haplogroup, of course, they're in the Andamanese Islands down here. The D, they're up here in the Tibeto-Burman. The D is up here in near the Denisova cave. Remember, the Denisova cave is way up here in the Altai Mountains, and here we have the D up here as well as the C. So you have both C and D in the area of the Denisovans, which are a mixture of Eurasians and Hamitic, which is interesting. Yeah. So you have the D that goes all the way over here, the D2, Joman, and of course the D goes all the way here to the Ainu Japanese, or Jomans. And so in northern Japan, because they were pushed out by the O haplogroup of Magog, they were pushed out and displaced, and so they went north, and so the D is mostly up in the north. And that would be the descendants of the Sinite tribe, the namesake of the land of Sinim.
Yeah, that whole thing's pretty interesting there with the the Asians, how they came to be. I think that they're pretty much a mixture.
Oh yeah, well, some of them are, some of them aren't. Yeah, and you can almost tell just by the facial features,
Right. Well, I'm gonna stop the share for a second. We'll bring you back up.
Okay.
And I'm gonna
go ahead and bring this down.
I'm gonna start with my thing, and then we'll kind of we're gonna meet in the middle. That's where we're gonna be.
Okay. All right.
That's the thought anyway.
All right.
So
I'll just sit back and watch a presentation. Then.
Yeah, it's not going to be long. I'll take about 5-10 minutes. Sort it out here. Can you see that? Hasn't come up yet. I had trouble with this last.
Not yet for me. I got a good connection.
Oh, that's why I got. Hang on.
I should have a good connection today because I was using the wrong connection the other day.
Okay, I got that.
Okay, we got. Let me look at the comments. I gotta look at the comments there.
There's a couple of them.
Mongolian language. Got Brother Timothy. There we go. Doki Doki.
So what I have loaded up is not sharing. Okay, let's try this again.
And Jerome. There we go.
There we go.
There it is.
Now it should happen.
There it is.
You see it?
Yep. Well, I see your page. Yeah.
Yeah. Starts with the. Yeah. Let's scoot back up here and we'll start with that. You can see the. Basically, that's the wrong one. So we get to the other one. Why is the other one not showing up? This is not. Let's close that. There we go. Should be it. There we go. That was just part of the thing, but it's not what I wanted. There we go. You see that? Basically, the lineages of. No,
I don't see. Maybe there's something now. Maybe.
Oh, what's going on with this thing?
Not yet.
I tried this before. I don't know if I have to share the whole window because I'm just trying to share the.
Yeah, they move stuff around in StreamYard, so you have to click on share entire screen and stuff sometimes, or whatever it is.
I'm going to try that now. Share screen, because that's the only way I can bring up the PowerPoint, right? So entire screen.
Well, if it's got sound, you got to click the sound.
There we go. Yeah, you can hear me though, right?
Yeah.
So it's there we go. Now you see it?
Yeah, I see it now. Yeah, ages.
Yeah, this is the stuff. Oh,
yeah.
There we go. So current slide. There we go. All right, now we're cooking with bacon. All right, sizzling. So obviously Adam was the first. You can see the lineages. We've all seen a chart similar to this where they've counted up, how many years that they did from. Right. That goes all the way down here to Isaac. So Isaac, obviously, with Esau and, Jacob, and then then it goes to Joseph.
Jacob
so Joseph,
and Esau,
yeah, all the way down the bottom. I had to cut it off, but so this is the area that we're talking about right here. If you follow, just because it always follows, this is part of Jesus Christ's lineage, being a Semite, coming through. So Shem, Noah lasted a long time. Then the dates kind of go. So Shem outlasted his first son, Arphaxad, and then even all of his sons actually, except for when he gets to Eber. Outlasted Peleg, outlasted Reu, Serug, Nahor, even outlasted Terah, which was Abraham's father.
Yeah.
And so Abraham was a contemporary, or Shem was a contemporary of Adam or Abraham. So Abraham is basically, that's why I believe that Shem is Melchizedek, because he wouldn't have had a father or mother because they would have all been, dead hundreds of years ago. And so with that, he would have even, Isaac. So, Isaac being, that's where we get into this lineage with that. And then I did a thing on basically the first alphabet was Hebrew, and Moses had to be able to write something based off of his education as an Egyptian, but Egypt also had libraries.
Right.
And this is where it really gets into it's the teledotes. So basically, this teledote gets into the lineage, the generations, and there's actually 10 specific teledotes in Genesis alone. The only time you come across the next teledote after that would be in First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, and then you go into the teledote of Jesus Christ in Mark and Luke, or sorry, Matthew and Luke.
Yeah. You
So
remember
yeah.
you told me to watch the videos of what was his name, David Roll or something?
Yeah, David Roll. Yeah.
He pointed out something interesting in that the writer, one of the first writers, anyways, of the original Hebrew, he pointed out that it was probably Joseph, which is before Moses, so that by the time Moses came around, they had a Hebrew alphabet and writings.
Right.
But
Oh, go ahead.
but they were probably, I mean, they were probably compilations of other Hebrew writings anyway. But go ahead, yeah, sorry.
Right. Well, the thing with Joseph, okay, so he was called by the Pharaoh at the time, Zampathanea, right? Which they have trouble translating it. But he was the seer of things unseen,
Yeah,
is kind of how it translates there. So the writing was pre-Joseph in the cuneiform writing that we find from ziggurats and other things that they're unearthing every day. Epic of Gilgamesh. Once they found the Rosetta Stone, they could figure it all out. But you had, writing, but they were pictographs, hieroglyphs, or the cuneiform writing, which was done on clay and then had to be hardened. Most of them we see, they last a long time. We kind of talked about it yesterday. Once they find the copper scrolls, then it's game over, right?
yeah,
Can't ignore that one. So from there, these are sites that are on Mount Ararat, with the that's supposedly the dig out of the ark in the middle there. You can see that.
yeah. You can get rid of that thing that says stop sharing. You can
Oh,
hide
that. Yeah,
hide that. Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
So this is an aerial photo, and I pulled some pictures off of the Iconos. And you can see off here to the side. Now, I don't believe it's actually on Mount Ararat. It's probably, it's not on the top. It would have been sliding down as the water was receding. But Ararat's it is pretty much a central area there in the Mesopotamia, Middle East area. So after the flood, there was the beginning of cities and kings. So you had Babylon, Erech, Akkad, which is Sargon of Akkad, which I believe was Cush. Then you have Calneh in the land of Shinar, and their kings was called Nebroth, which is Nimrod in the Akkadian, and then you have in the next one, and then you have Babel, Asher. That's it. From these came Asher, from whom all the Assyrians received their names.
Yeah.
And Nimrod built the cities of Nineveh, Rehoboth, and Kela, Resen, between Nineveh and Kala, which they kind of eliminate Babel here, but it was, the great grandson of Noah that did start the Tower of Babel. And this is, writing that goes way back, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which they've traced. And Gilgamesh, I also believe, is just another name, one of the towns that they found this in, for Nimrod. There's some speculation because they found some smaller scrolls. I don't think I have it here. There you go. This is actually, it's broken, but they can decipher what it says on there because of the cuneiform. But it was basically a letter, big diatribe type of thing with a bunch of, I don't know how to read that, but apparently it's what it said was it had facts and figures on selling some of their herds, things like that. So they had the ability to write going into the flood. It just didn't come about. And you can see the close-up here of an ergatic tablet where I can't make out what the figures are, but because of the Rosetta Stone, they have that. So it just didn't happen all of a sudden. There had to be a first thought. And my thinking is there had to be something, not just verbal, that came across all the way until Moses' time, that he was able to copy the earlier. He would have known the stories, but he had the actual copies that would have been stored in Egypt area because of Ham and Mizraim pretty much taking over that area after Nimrod was gone. So even Abraham went down to Egypt. After he left the Ur of Chaldees, is where Abraham was. If you look in I think it is First Chronicles. Maybe it's the second chapter or the third. I have it on this PowerPoint, but it says that Abram's father was the maker of idols. So if you match up that time, Nimrod would have been older, but he was still ruling that area, considered Babel, and making the idols for their worship. So the pagan worship kind of took on really, really fast. And if you look at the migration of your charts, you have these stories of Semiramis, Nimrod, and Tammuz, and then you go further south into Egypt, and they turn it into Isis, Horus, and Set, or Isis, Horus, and the other guy. Not just Set, but the other one. Gosh, just blew my mind right now. But if you look at the IHS on the Catholic banners and things like that, you would think it's in his service or whatever they're supposed to say, but it's actually Isis, Horus, Set is what the IHS, and that's what the that's what the different priests decided on after, I think it was about the 1100s, somewhere in that range. The Jesuits, and Saint Ignatius Loyola. So with the granite tablets, and then you get into this type of pictograph drawing. I'm going to stop sharing here, but
Egyptian cows.
Yeah, this is supposedly in the this is Jabal al-Az, the true Mount Sinai.
But they are Egyptian cows, though.
Oh yeah. Well, they had a specific bull that they worshipped with the long horns, so it'd be kind of like a longhorn steer, right?
Yeah.
So let me cut out of there. So that's part of my thing, where coming out of the stop sharing here. There we go. Yeah, where they come out of the ark, Shem, Ham, and Japheth are all ready to make their families, and something goes wrong. Ham is kind of sent away, but it's the fourth generation is Canaan, right? Canaan, third or fourth generation. And it kind of mentions that later on, that there would be iniquity to the third or fourth generation, which is interesting in the story of David, how he came about, because he was the fourth generation.
The Canaanite tribes, I think, are the fourth, right? Would be the fourth, right? Sinai, Hittite, Jebusite, Perizzite,
right?
Yeah.
So all those, and yeah, there's a lot of fictitious stories, things like that go around that don't have any archaeological evidence. But when you get into archaeology and they pinpoint it, like David Rohl, I mean, the guy's an agnostic, right? He was a great musician. I used to listen to a lot of his music. just kind of went past that. But I had no idea he was a famous Egyptologist.
Yeah,
So
he studied later in life. He studied Egyptology because he
right,
was trying to um, get the dates right because the dates there's so much confusion in the dates.
and that's the other part, because when you get into these lineages and like what you're doing with the dispersions from a certain area, and their thoughts of because I was taught that in early age, that the Eskimos were just left over from the Indians and everything else that came across from the Asiatics, right? They came across the Bering
Yeah.
Strait, and because the water's very, very shallow. I think Brother Timothy pointed that out, that the it's 60 feet deep from Alaska to Russia, and we bought Alaska from Russia, so it's kind of interesting. But the Bering Strait is only 60 feet deep in some places. Or I
Yeah.
think it is 60 feet deep. It's kind of like but on either side, if you look at like the Red Sea crossing, you have the shelf there that was only a few hundred feet deep, whereas on each side of it, it goes about a mile down. So that's what secularists have trouble trying to think about, that it didn't happen. But they'll believe that, let's just say 40,000 Inuits, in the freezing cold, went across the Bering Strait and started populating the United States. And we don't have here in California, which you'd think they'd come straight down here to California. They don't have the heritage. Matter of fact, they were doing something on the freeway with a bridge 4 years ago. They still haven't built the bridge because somebody found a bone and they think it's an old Indian bone. And which is kind of funny because that dirt that they're digging in was done in the 1970s. that dirt was brought in because it's part of a bridge. It's like, so anyway, they stopped that, and so for 4 years they haven't been able to finish the bridge because they believe it's Indian. But there's not, other than here in the South, there's not a lot of proof of a huge population here in California, mostly in the Midwest and mostly in the East, that you see a lot of Native Americans, I guess you could say. I don't know what the correct terminology is anymore. Change it every day.
The interesting thing is that their haplogroups are consistent throughout America. It's all Q for the most part, except for the C descendants of Nimrod, and then in America, North America, our Native American Indians. You look at their faces, and they don't look like Eskimos.
No, they do not. They're totally different, and even the Eskimos say they are.
But but they do look like they could be, and probably are, a mix of Mediterranean. So that's why the Native Americans in America are different from the Eskimos and South American Indians too, for that matter. South American Indians, some of them look, they look a little bit Mediterranean too, but there's actually two different kinds. There's one kind with a large nose, and the other kind with a small nose. They're two
Right.
different appearances of Native Americans. Yeah,
Especially as you go down further south into what's called Mexico now, South America, things like you have the what would be considered a larger nose with a hook kind of to it, a kind of like a flatter chin.
They'll be like South America. I think they have a big nose too. But Mexicans are more like the Eskimos, Asiatic. Some of them, yeah. And then it's really interesting. I would like to be able to study their DNA more. But besides the R1B Mediterranean that I was talking about, they also
Yes.
have the T Mediterranean, the G Mediterranean, the E, the B, the J1, the J2, and the
Hmm.
I1 and the I2, all Mediterranean in Native American populations.
Yeah. See, that's the whole diversity thing, right? That's because that's just setting people against people. And I mean, it flows out of the secularist idea that there is a hierarchy in breeding, and starts with the evolution, right? Favored races,
Yeah,
Darwin.
yeah, but
Um,
you saw the video, right, of Richard Dawkins talking to a black man saying that he evolved from him or something. Did you see
oh,
that video?
geez, Richard Dawkins. I don't know what kind of medication he's overloaded on, but did you hear his new belief now is panspermia? He's
Yeah,
gone.
that's. I think that's been a while. I've seen that a
Yeah,
while ago, but yeah, because there's no possible way that evolution could have happened within the 4.5 billion years of Earth's history, supposedly.
yeah.
He knows that. He knows that can't happen. So that's why he's appealing to not only panspermia, but probably multiple universes too.
Exactly, and that even makes that just muddies the water even more. Um, but it's kind of like somebody says, "Hey, look over here," while with the left hand, while the right hand's taking all the money out of the till. Um, and that's the bottom line. I mean, it's all about money. You get a lot of reward for you know adding something into the textbook, and then the school's got to get new textbooks, and so the whole unified
Oh,
school district, the whole city, the whole state, the whole country then has to have that textbook.
and it's
And
about control too. They don't want to lose control
right,
over the educational system because
that's true.
if evolution is disproved, then they lose their control over the educational system because they're just teaching nonsense.
Right. And Jerome M just popped up another one. This is really good. It's true. He was a monkey. Huh? He's
Yeah,
acting like a monkey, that's for sure. Most of them do. And I'm not getting burned out on staying for Truth's channel and that. I think he's just allowing too much on that channel thinking. And I understand what it is. You want to bring people in, turn them to Christ. But these people that come onto his channel now are not going to be turned any which way. They're straight on, I'm a scientist, whether they are or not. It's like, I thought Taylor was taking some sort of, snake, right? I thought he was taking
yeah,
some sort of a biology course. And then it turns out he's doing paleontology all of a sudden. What, he couldn't handle the biology because it didn't point to his, he probably asked the teacher, hey, can this turn into that? And the teacher, the professor or the whoever's running the class, because he's
yeah.
probably a sophomore by now at least, um, probably said, no, that never happens. So, but he still keeps up the
Biology,
perpetuation.
right? Biology is where it's at. Paleontology is just like Aaron Ross looks like. This looks like this. That looks like that.
Exactly. And they're always digging. I mean, I want to go there. I've been by there, but I've never stopped. That big, huge dig that they have in the middle of the United States, what part of Montana, Wyoming, and all that, where they all the
Yeah,
dinosaurs. I want to go see that museum where it's like a 50-foot wall that they just dug out, and you can just see the bones sticking out of the dirt of all of the different as reptiles and birds and everything like that. And that's why they figure the birds and reptiles are the same, and they're not. But where I'm getting with that is that there's a lot of flux, and I don't like debating on chat. I'm getting away from that because it takes up way too much time. And then, if you have somebody like, Andrew Cumming that just wants to keep,
yeah.
you know,
He's just
trolling.
not making any sense. It just come, and
No.
like Mark Reed too, he's just come back. He'll just say anything, whether it makes sense or not.
Well, it's all a defense base because there's something going on in their life that they don't want to believe
Right,
in a myth, yet they'll believe in
right.
the myths that they're told by a teacher who's getting paid 40,000, 50,000, or whatever dollars a year to teach this stuff, right?
Yeah,
And because they got a new textbook that had a new picture of a half worm, half snake. No, it's called an eel. Okay, or
yeah.
what are those worm like? They're not skeets, but something along that line where they're kind of like a worm like, but they kind of like an eel. But
In the Great Lakes or somewhere, there's. I mean, they have them all
yeah,
over. Yeah,
yeah, I can't remember what they're called, but
yeah,
and they you know evolved. Well, I don't know. I can guarantee you, if I ever get married again and I want to have a child, I guarantee you it's going to be a human. You
yeah.
know, I mean, don't we take that bet every single day? I mean, every
Yeah.
single day.
I mean,
So, yeah, the Jerome man makes a good point here. They just come on there to slam and to uh, waste time for standing for truth. And, you know, I don't want to be that moderator, but I think I'm going to be that moderator. And it's just, when these people come on, they just waste time. They speed up the chat, and maybe SFT should put a timer on the chat. It's,
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of places do the limiting where they get
A
30
lot of back
seconds.
and forth. I mean, I said to Mark Reed, I probably saw what I said. He didn't respond, but I said because when he asked to join, I said, as long as you don't spend all the time talking and not hearing anything, not listening.
Right. And so the thing with Kent, we kind of talked about this a little bit. They didn't let Kent answer. They kept coming up with these things and these things and these things. That is not how you're going to reach an atheist. Okay, that is not how you're going to reach an atheist, because they're so stuck in this evolution thing. Um, I want to drive down there to Texas and talk with Dr. Tour, but he's not a creationist. He's one of those theistic evolutionists. Now, he does
Yeah,
believe in Jesus Christ and everything like that, but he's a theistic evolutionist.
right. He's not so much a young Earth creationist, but he doesn't want to take sides. He doesn't want to.
A lot of them don't want to rock the boat because they get ostracized. They will. Um, Now, he has tenure. They can't kick him out, but he has
Right.
lost his regular funding of grants. He has the students get the grants.
Yeah.
He can't apply for the grants anymore because they took that away from him. Now, he is a millionaire through his inventions.
Right.
And I'll go back to the Lenski again. That he got $6 million a year for about 11 years out of the 22 years, and he handed it off. So we already knew back in the early 1960s that Escherichia coli, E. coli, can live off of citrate. We already knew that. There's nothing new about it. But that's all he came up with after 22 years, and somewhere in the range, uh, of $125 million. And the labs, the only thing you have to pay for would be extra beakers and things like that. The labs already exist at the university that's sponsoring you, which got, a portion of that grant money, right? What
Yeah.
filtered down into Lenski was probably about $40 million. Would you string along something for 22 years that you knew was totally false for $40 million if you were, just a regular guy, not a
Well,
Christian stealing?
well, I've already, come to terms with the fact that I'm not going to make money by telling the truth, off of telling the truth. And so, and I don't even try to ask for money. And I'm, as far as I know, I'm not going to. But because, I'm trying to, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to pay my own way. But I already know that there's no money in telling the truth. I mean,
Well, it's it is a fairy tale. It's the old pumpkin turns into a carriage for Cinderella, right?
because somehow the truth is not interesting to people. They just they just think it. Well, they don't
Well,
believe it to begin with, but it's just not. It's not interesting. I mean, well, the truth is about Jesus, and you
right.
talk about Jesus, and people just get turned off.
Yeah, my yeah, I you know, had a realization I had a pretty big media company, and when you see behind the curtain on the music industry, especially the country music industry, you think it's all wholesome and this and that.
Yeah,
Movie industry, behind even the sports industry, dealing with ESPN. Oh my gosh, it's everything that you see is all scripted. Just letting you know that right now. They're told um, that they have to, if they deviate from the script, they're fired. And they're
yeah,
paid enough money to do this, but they have to, and they have script writers. They don't write their own thing. You actually think that Shaquille O'Neal sitting there writing his dialogue for ESPN? No, he's
yeah.
reading a teleprompter. He
Once in
knows
a
some.
while, they'll go off script once in a while, and they get in trouble for it.
Right.
But yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, when you see everybody saying the same thing, you know they're on script.
Right. And it's like that in universities today with the echo chamber. Because you have to study for the test, and if you have some different thing that you've been studying, you're not going to pass.
Right.
So yeah, there's just a lot of I wish that they would teach what you're doing in school. It's a little bit
History.
confusing. Yeah, history. I mean, it's a little uh, tough for the younger ones, but you wean them into it, and by the fourth, fifth grade, they already know what's going on, and they can recite it
Yeah.
back to you.
The reason why people, because they have a separate history from the actual history, and it's usually centered around Sumerians, but they think Sumerians are like way, way, way a long time ago,
Right.
and they don't have it. So they don't have the Sumerians associated as being Assyrian with a ruling class of Nimrod, but the
Right.
Bible links Assyria with Nimrod. It puts
Yep.
them together. It's like,
Yeah, and that's all the history that comes out even up into Nebuchadnezzar. In that area, and you can find different maps. You can find different.
yeah, but
You know,
but the dates are all mixed up. They're all, everything's unaligned because they don't realize that the Bible is contemporaneous with and precedes ancient civilization. Lamprey, that's what it is. Lamprey.
yeah, that's it. Thanks, Jerome, for studying. But so my son and daughter, the 3 years apart, and my son, he never took to. We didn't indoctrinate him. We just told him the stories, and he believed us. And then when he would go out to Sunday school and all that stuff, he'd say, "Oh, that's not Noah's Ark," to all the other little kids. And he said it was a really big boat, because he got to go on to a ocean liner and went on a cruise, so he got to see how big the boat was. And my daughter, the same thing. My daughter can give the quickest 30-second gospel. It's just wrap your eyeballs in the back of your head spinning to any atheist. It's just that's what she does. It's just like so quick. And I do the same thing. But it's not as polished as hers. I try to get into different meat and potatoes. But it's just.
When I was a kid, I had somebody come up to the door, trying to witness or preach to us, and I was a kid, and he started preaching works, and I said, and I'm a little kid, he's like an old man, and I told him, I gave him the verse, for by grace you have been saved through faith, not as a result of works, He said,
Yeah.
like you've never even seen the verse before, or something like that, or didn't believe it, but he thought he had something over. He thought he could just tell me, something, and I told him, I showed him the verse.
Yeah. Okay. That is a pet peeve of mine. Verses. I say it all the time. The Bible was not written with verse separations or even chapter separations.
Yeah.
They are helpful. I get it. So you can turn to the page, you know exactly where it is. But the reason the verses came in was for typesetting, because they already had the chapters, but the chapters didn't, and they would mess up the printing with the Gutenberg. So they had, the typesetting. So that the verses were put in so that every Bible was consistent, that it ended on verse 34 in Revelation, right? Whatever. So they had the typesetting so that they didn't waste paper, because it was hard to make paper back then. They didn't have these big paper mills. You just run down to Home Depot and get some some new typesetting things, and we go to Staples and get a bunch of paper. They had to make that stuff, so that's why it came out. But when we hear these debates, it's always about 1 John 5:7, whatever. It's just, look, a verse is not a doctrine, and you cannot build a church off a doctrine. Yet the Jehovah's Witnesses did, off of one verse out of Isaiah, that you will be my witnesses. I mean, the Mormons, pretty much the same thing. That's a whole different area. It's more Masonic and Luciferian than anything. Thinking we're going to have our own planets.
Well, the problem with a lot of these cults and everything, and these work salvation and Pentecostals, is that they just don't read the Bible. And if you know the Bible, then you can explain the correct teaching to them. But a lot of times they don't even know what the Bible says. They just, hallelujah, jabber, 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 jibber, jibber, hallelujah.
Right. Well, look what I put just on the screen, Jerome. He's been studying it. So it was kind of funny when TBN first came out, Trinity Broadcasting. It was just down the street from us. We went to the audience a couple of times. But what's his name? Paul and Jan. They started with nothing. But as people came in, calling themselves preachers and all this, Kenneth Copeland and all those guys, they deviated from the scriptures and went into Pentecostal. It's all about how you feel. It's the emotion. Oh, I'm saved by the Holy Ghost because they, feel it, right? Well, you're not actually feeling the Holy Ghost. You're feeling a different thing, which is mind control.
Right. And they often have trouble with immorality in the groups.
Oh yeah,
because they don't teach what the Bible says.
No, they don't. And they're afraid that if you teach the Bible, but that's how you separate straight off the bat the sheep from the goats on your end, right? As you're, talking to a group of people, you're going to offend probably more than half of them, probably 80% of a crowd today, by just telling them the simple gospel that you're a sinner,
Yeah.
and you need to be saved. And guess what? That person lived 2,000 years ago, who died upon a cross, for you.
I
Yeah,
was
they buried him and he rose again.
I was actually shocked one time. I went to a Bible study back east in Newark, New Jersey, and they would read a passage of scripture and then turn around and deny every single thing that it said. I couldn't believe it. They would
Isn't
just
that?
go, yeah,
Yeah. And okay. We have, I don't know what's like in your area if you have any mega churches, but we've got, I can't really, Pastor Jack Hibbs, I can't knock him down. He's done great, but he has 4 services on Sunday and about 3,000 to 4,000 per session. So it's,
yeah,
about 12,000, almost 14,000 people go through that church on Sunday. But what do they do Monday through? They don't have anything Monday through Thursday. They have something on
yeah,
Friday, and they have a Saturday whatever service, but it's it's only like 40 minutes. I'm not going to knock on him. He's done great. I mean, he took a challenge, built the whole church himself. But he comes out of Calvary Chapel, and which I'm not against. They're not Calvinists. It's pretty
yeah.
much the Calvinist thought under. Gosh, I'm so bad with names.
Well,
But
my impression when I first went to a church like that had 3 or 4 services on Sunday, because I was raised in churches all over the place where we went. We went to different
right.
churches. But when I walked into that church, I'm thinking, this is not even a church. This is a business.
Oh yeah. And what's going to come back and bite them in the butt is that 501c.
Yeah,
A
it's a
lot of these
business.
churches,
Yeah,
I mean, the church I go to, they put out there's a lot of wealthy people that go to the church and they donate, and they give offerings, things like that for certain needs. So there's no trouble there. It's a smaller church. I think we don't have members, but there's about 2,500 that are strict. Go there pretty much every Sunday. We have a men's study, Bible study on Thursday nights. What I do notice is quite a few people go there just to associate with other people. So they, it's like there's a big business owner in this town, and he struts around like he's this and that. Now, I'm not judging him. He's done well. I know he gives to the church, but I've never seen him talk to any new person that walks in the door. You would think if a person's been at a church for 10 years, you'd know somebody's new, right?
yeah,
And it's not, I mean, they have greeters at the door. Oh, that's just their thing. No, I want to meet somebody, and that's what I do. I chit chat with everybody. But it's interesting when you get into how much money these guys are making off these books that are worthless. I wouldn't even use them for the toilet. When everybody's coming out with a new book. I've only read 3 really good books. One's the Bible, if you want to call it a book, 66 books. It's a bibliography. Pilgrim's Progress,
yeah. I read that.
and C.S. Lewis.
Yep.
As far as reading those books, and I've read some of them. My dad would buy a book every so often, and it would have some good things in it, but then in order to fill the pages, it had a bunch of fluff, and it was just
One
really
One
incredible.
book that influenced me quite a bit was um, Tortured for Christ by Voice of the Martyrs,
Yeah,
uh, Richard Wurmbrand.
I've heard of that book. I've
He,
heard of that.
I mean, he wasn't all that or anything, but I mean, as far as his teaching or anything, but he had a relationship with God, and he suffered a lot for the name, the name of the
Yeah.
gospel, both as being a Christian and a Jew in communist and Nazi prisons, both.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah. So that, he had a profound effect on me, you know, because I read his book, Tortured for Christ, when I was a kid.
Yeah, that I mean there's a lot of good literature that out there, but as I've gotten a bit older, I've just gone into you know, the Bible. What else do I need? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I need to read about certain things, but I'm talking about you can go to the best psychiatrists in the world. All they're trying to do is figure out their own problems. You can go to um, some self-help group, which I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying, but you're not going to get when you dig into the Bible. I mean, just look at Job, look at Psalms, Ecclesiastes. Look at the troubles that these people have had. Um, most of the prophets and the kings, and they're going through the same stuff that we're going through now. Money problems, women problems, this problem, that problem. They're all going through it. And how'd they get out of it? Turn to God.
Actually, I went I went against all of the recommended advice of doctors and counselors and everything, and I did better than what the doctors could offer me or any counselors.
Yeah. And and it has to be a true change in your heart. And that's kind of the antagonism, what I've seen, in chat boards. Okay. And believe me, I've had my 2,000 word responses to a lot of them that goes nowhere.
Are you familiar with Knock? Knock, what was it?
No.
What was his name? Not he would talk to Smokey Sneen a lot. His name was Knock. He has his that's his regular name or something, but or his nickname. But he went by something Raging Atheist. You ever seen Raging Atheist?
Yeah, raging atheist. Yeah, I've seen him millions of times. Yeah,
He
they couldn't get
he
away from him
he
a couple years ago.
became a believer. He's he's maybe not entirely Christian right now, but he's working through all the things, and he apologized for all the trouble he caused and everything, and now he believes in God and a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, that was that
Rage,
video with what's his name, uh,
yeah,
raging atheist.
He had a video with
Yeah,
the one pastor.
living at DAL, and then I think Anderson talked with him a couple times, but Anderson gave up on him. Um, but yeah, that was the one where he broke down and started crying. Raging atheist started crying about it, but then he said, then he had to save face to all his followers because he had a big following, especially on YouTube and things like that. And he had to save face, and he said, it was something else. They edited it, they chopped it up, they totally.
No, but he had a video. He did a video with Matt Powell, and he just went through what he was his change or his change of mind and thought and everything, and how he's working through stuff to
Yeah, Matt Powell.
believe,
That was it. Thank you so much,
believe
Jerome.
in believe in God. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if I wasn't, this is how I know I'm a Christian, because there's a little thing that taps me on the back of my freaking head. Not as hard as a slap. Sometimes I need it. That this is a weird situation. tread lightly. It's kind of like my spidey senses tingling type of a scenario. And this is, you know, it's an interesting thing that it's like I go someplace and you shouldn't be here. And people are, oh, what's the matter? No, this I just can't be happy in that environment anymore. It's like, nah, that was when I was a kid. And I gotta go. I mean, I'm happy doing something like this, being with fellowship with friends, going to the beach, and tossing a ball or something like that on the beach or playing some basketball. I'm happy doing that stuff. But going and, trying to find, I mean, I've been single now for 11 years and had a couple of short time relationships, but it was not fulfilling for me at all, which I was looking for the wrong person, I'm sure. And, whether it's God's plan to get married again or whatever.
Yeah, it's not
it's
easy. I guess, yeah, it's not easy.
Women have changed since, and that was the thing. I mean, I was married for 22 years, 25 years with the one I married. And
but that's part of the plan is get women to be independent.
Yes.
And not needing to be with a man,
And yeah, it really is a shame. And I mean, there's a population downsizing right now. That Malthusian type of a thing has really been ingrained into smaller people's minds. The population's getting too big. Well, in cities, yeah, but where you're at, Jungle Jargon, I'm sure you have a full road most of the time. That just like empty. Here, it takes you 20 minutes to go 3 miles. On certain days.
I joke whenever there's a little bit of a traffic jam. I joke with saying that I got to go farther back into the woods.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely on my roll to go back to Tennessee. Done with Huntington Beach, California. It was funny. 4th of July, LA County, which encapsulates Woodland Hills, Hollywood, Los Angeles, Long Beach, Downey, all the way out to San Gabriel Mountains, LA County. They didn't allow fireworks. They didn't even have them at the Dodgers game. That was And so they outlawed all fireworks. So guess where they came? Orange County allows fireworks.
Yeah.
And they passed that rule during COVID, matter of fact. Oh, that's a strike against me. I used the word. Sorry. But no, it's really good. I think we need to wrap it up here. Coming on to an hour, 20 minutes. Kind of want to keep it to an hour. But let's make this a habit. Just get together. We can do it on your channel if you want. I just have I know I have a better broadband thing going on. But
yeah, I got the 5G right now. It's pretty good.
Oh, you got it? Okay, cool.
As long as it's not bad weather, I should have a good signal here.
Well, fair enough. I mean, let's keep this up because have you had any more talks with Lion Farm about all this?
No, we have cordial discussions once in a while in the chat and stuff, but
yeah,
not a whole lot. But it's interesting how everybody wants to be an Israelite or a Jew or somebody,
I know. I'm blonde haired, blue eyed.
Even Dr. Jensen thinks that Europeans are Semitic, or Eurasians are Semitic. He thinks the T. For some reason, he thinks the T, which is Javan, he thinks that's the Jewish people, the T. For some reason,
yeah.
And the only T in the population, the Jewish population, is in Portugal because of Elisha the son of Javan, which brings the T to Iberia.
Ah,
You know the Tarshish. No, I said Elisha, not it's Tarshish, not Elisha.
Tarshish. Yeah.
Tarshish
Well,
is
yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Okay, let's talk about Tarshish next time we get together. The trade route,
yeah,
all the way from Babylon to Rome.
yeah. And it was the Javan Sea people that gained control over the Mediterranean. They later became the Mediterranean Sea people, or the Phoenicians, in the
Yeah.
days of King Solomon. And
So
so
let's.
by the time they became Phoenicians, they consisted of every one of the haplogroups I mentioned that was in the Native American tribes. It's the T, the G, the E, the B, the J1, J2, the G. All those Mediterranean haplogroups are in Native American Indians too, but they're also in the Jewish people with the addition of the Q, which is Native American.
Right. Well, I mean, we're all sewn together by a thing called DNA.
Or
They had to
Mede,
come from someplace.
or Medes. Yeah, Medes are Q. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just been great. Yeah. Let's do this. Do this again. Just get in touch with me, and we'll see how this goes. Because
Okay.
I think I know there's some other ones out there, uh, but there's just a couple of things that I see. Because I'm not going to go down the evolutionary road, but this kind of leads to that anyway. Because yeah, there's adaptation between the races, if you want to consider them races, but they're all the same. If you
They're just
prick me, don't
they're
I
just
believe?
different skin color basically.
Yeah, it's just a pigmentation, which
I mean,
I
there
I
are
don't.
differences of there are differences because the Neanderthal have more in common with Eurasians than they do African and Semitic people populations.
Yeah.
So the
Oh
Neanderthals
yeah.
were Eurasians, but
Right.
there's nobody living to today that's a Neanderthal. But the people that have the most Neanderthal DNA are Eurasians, and more toward the Eurasian side, toward the Asiatic side. You know,
Right. Yeah. The Neanderthals were the intermediates for a while till they figured out.
and
Hey, wait a second.
and the, and the Denisovans from a Denisova cave is a mixture of Hamitic and Eurasian. It's not complicated, really, when you understand things the way they are, when you follow the history, follow the movements, the migrations of people, it makes sense. It all
Right.
falls into place. I didn't mention earlier, but Madai in history, in historical text, asked to marry one of the daughters of Shem. So everywhere the Q goes, a
Oh.
branch of the mitochondrial DNA, which is Semitic, goes along with him. But that Semitic branch is separate from the Middle Eastern Semitic branch, but they're both Semitic. But everywhere Q goes, there's an A mitochondrial haplogroup in America, and in Europe, it's X and W, which is this branch off from the same lineage of A.
Right.
It's very
Huh.
interesting. And then B is a Middle Eastern Semitic that goes by way of the Pacific to America. It's very, very interesting. I mean,
All
it
right.
just it all it fits into place. Everything fits into place, and
It
it's
really does. I mean, the puzzle was just getting the pieces and then figuring out what came from where.
yeah.
And it kind of explains it. Kind of explains it after the flood.
If there was one thing off, it would throw the whole thing off. But it's like everything is falls into place.
Right.
Everything fits perfectly. That's what's so amazing about it, and
Yeah.
that's why we need to understand that every ancient civilization was identified and named before they became civilizations in Genesis 10, the table of nations,
Right.
that names 16 of the grandsons of Noah, which became the 16 ancient civilization, which is Assyria, Elam,
Right.
Arameans, everything, all the
Well,
way through, all the way through.
well, it's the same thing with, let's talk about America. When they came over, they started, you know, making cities like Charlottesville, Watsonsville. You got all these, last name cities that are,
Oh yeah,
created, and it's
Pennsylvania,
nothing different. That's how it all worked. Yeah.
Pennsylvania, Pittsylvania,
Right.
a whole bunch of different names. Yeah,
It's just, and then if somebody wanted to change their name because they didn't have birth certificates back then, they could, you know, do whatever they want and build a new
yeah,
town out in some other area. Uh, it makes sense when you name a city after the state that just became a state. But if you're naming it after a like
I
like
I
Davis,
actually
yeah.
I actually found um, a link between one of my ancestors and his father, which there was no records of him being the son of his father. There was his father had records of a whole bunch of other children, but it was funny that everywhere he went, some of the daughter in particular followed him through Kentucky all the way into Indiana. They followed him wherever he went.
Wow,
And it turns out my Y-DNA test confirmed that this other guy was his father. His name was Benjamin.
wow, yeah.
Yeah, it was
It's
amazing.
my daughter dove into that, and you know
And I
how far we go
have
back.
I have a lot of Y chromosomal cousins going back 300 years that are descended from the brothers of this Benjamin I'm talking about, with a whole bunch of other different names, Daniel and a whole bunch of different names.
Yeah.
But they were his brothers. But I have DNA. Shared. I have a link to them by way of the Y chromosome
Yeah.
going back 300 years, and they're identified as my distant cousin, my cousins.
Oh wow.
Y DNA cousins,
Huh.
proving that he is my ancestor.
Yeah. Right. Well,
Yeah,
it's always good to know where you came from.
yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up, and we'll get back together and we'll finish it up.
Okay,
So it's that way.
sounds good.
All right, my man. You have a great rest of your day on a Saturday,
Yep.
and
I have to go fix somebody's car. I try to fix it.
ah, well, have fun doing that. I'm sure you get it done pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's cooler weather now, a little bit.
Yeah, it's been cool here. I mean, most of the time we said we are supposed to get a heat wave that everybody else has been getting, but nothing yet so far. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
All right.
All right, man. You have a great
Yeah.
day. All
Take
right.
care.
God bless you.
God bless.
Bye. See you later, Doki.
There we go.